Let me just say, you don't get extra points by doing it the hard way. I think the other thing is to understand is actually this is how the world of work actually works. There's one thing that you can do as a candidate for a job that is absolutely going to play into this space, and it's the most powerful thing that nobody ever tells you in an interview.
G'day guys, coming up on the show today is Allison Robison, the Executive General Manager of People and Culture at Cricket Australia. On today's episode, you're going to hear exactly what you need to do to get hired by Cricket Australia. That's right, Allison very generously shares the process her and her team go through to find talent, the 3 questions they ask of every candidate in the selection process, how you can structure your responses to articulate your value, and why she says there are no bonus points for doing it the hard way. Allison is a former executive at National Australia Bank. She's also on the board of Swimming Australia and previously Athletics Victoria. And so there are not many people better placed in the sports industry than her to give you the very best recruitment advice. Let's go.
I started volunteering.
It's all about who you know in sport.
Am I going to be calling the last 10 seconds of the grand final?
You can connect with the interviewer. The hand goes up when they've got to make a decision.
Having a network is one of the most important things you can do.
I didn't necessarily follow my passion. I followed my curiosity.
Once you've worked in sport, there's no going back.
And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered 2.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Grad Podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry, brought to you by Deakin University, home to the world's #1 sports science school. My name is Ruben Williams. I'm an ex-Cricket Australia employee who started Sports Grad to help others get their dream job, and now it's become my own dream job. And if we are not already, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn or Instagram. I've had some great conversations in the DMs there, so if you do have a question about anything, feel free to reach out to me. Now, if this is your first time listening to the Sports Grad Podcast, on this show every single week, I will find out from people usually what do they do in their job and how do they get to their job so that you can understand how to break into the sports industry or how to get your next job in sport, all so you can get ahead and stay ahead. If you are keen on a career in sport, this is a podcast you need to be hearing so that you understand insights from all areas of the industry. Now, typically we find out about people's career journeys, but today is a little different. Today, we've gone straight to the source of recruitment at Cricket Australia to actually find out, what do you need to do? Just literally give me the answers. What do I need to do to get a job at Cricket Australia? And that can translate across just about every other sport as well. So I think you're going to absolutely love this slightly different episode today. It's jam-packed with insights. And if you want to speak with people like Allison, then become a Sports Grad member, because you can actually join these sessions and have your questions answered and form a relationship with people like the General Manager of People and Culture at Cricket Australia. So if you want to get involved with future sessions like this, make sure you jump on a membership. Now, Sports Grad meetups are coming up. In very exciting news, we're going to Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. In Brisbane, we've got some great guests coming in from the Brisbane Broncos and the Brisbane Lions, the reigning champs. And then when we get to Sydney, we've got Cricket New South Wales and the AFL. And then down in Melbourne, we've got Hayley Conway, who is a freelance marketing consultant who has worked with the Formula One. She works with the AFL at the moment. She worked with Paris Olympics as well just recently. We've also got Joel Morrison, who is an executive of events and operations at Cricket Australia. And funnily enough, he was the person who I spoke to on the phone for 45 minutes before I got my first full-time job at Cricket Australia a long time ago now. But it will be a full circle moment for me to get him back at a meetup and talk to him about his career, because I met him in a networking event, and now he's going to be a guest at one of my networking events, helping other people get jobs in sport. So I can't wait for that. If you want a ticket, head to the Sports Grad website. They're all available there. We would love to see you there. Now, Speaking of the SportsGrad community, it is absolutely going off at the moment. Discord is pumping. There are wins coming in all the time. People are getting active on LinkedIn. One of the features that we introduced recently was a channel called #PumpUpMyPost. And that's where if you want some extra love on your LinkedIn posts, you can simply share a link to your post and put it in the chat of the community, and then other members can go directly to it, give it a like, give it a comment, and that will help promote your post to their networks and grow the reach of your profile. So a lot of members are getting active on that and getting a lot of views on their profile from doing that. So if you are a member and you haven't tried it already, I'd highly recommend you go and checking it out. But also it's been really good to see how it's encouraged other members to start posting on LinkedIn more regularly too. So well done to those people who are stepping out of their comfort zone for the first time. But yeah, that is one of the great features that has recently been introduced. Now, community wins. We always love shouting out our community members who have had some big wins in their career. All right, the first win goes to Cheyenne Butt and Mansard Jagannath, who have just got new roles with Cricket New South Wales as program coordinators. This one was a great one that came through during the week. Rishab Manhaj, who has just got a full-time job as a competition officer with Football Queensland. Well done to you, Rishab. And these last two are epic as well. I had coffee with both of these boys last week in Melbourne. Lintaro Miashen, who has just got a role as a data analyst at Gemba. If you want to learn more about working at Gemba, go back and listen to the last episode with Sam Waring, who's a marketing strategy consultant. And none other than Louis Asser, who's just got a job in marketing partnerships at Tennis Australia. Louis became a SportsGrad Pro member earlier this year. He was in New York at the time looking to make a move back to Australia after, I think he'd been in the US for about 10 years. And he's been able to do that and land a dream job at Tennis Australia. So he'll be all over the Oz Open this summer, so keep an eye out for him. Now, as always, there are plenty of events coming up. Madison Nutting, Jess Robertson coming up as well. We've got plenty of speed networking events and job fairs coming up. So if you want to stay up to date with everything going on, we've just introduced a new version of the newsletter, which is called Shortcuts by SportsGrad. Now, the sports industry is red hot. Competition for jobs is extremely, extremely tight. And this email sent out every Monday morning is designed to give you quick access to the things that are going to move the needle in your career quickly. So things like job opportunities or networking opportunities or premium resources that will show you like what does a job involve and what do you need to do to get it. So they're all designed to kind of shortcut the three different problems that people have in their career. Now, given that sport is incredibly tough, perhaps keep this newsletter to yourself, because if you want an edge over the competition, you don't want other people getting your hands on what you've got. So if you are not subscribed to this already, head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter and you can receive the next Shortcuts by SportsGrad in your inbox on Monday morning. Now, grab a pen and enjoy this chat with Allison Robison. Have you got your eye on a future in sport? If you're ready to transform the industry, then perhaps get ready to study with Deakin and prepare yourself to redefine what it means to work in sport. That's what I did at least. Deakin School of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences is ranked #1 in the world. Pretty cool, hey? So if you want to turn your passion for sport into an impactful career, get ready to push the limits of exercise science, sport coaching, sport development, sport management, nutrition sciences, physical education, and more. You can do it all at Deakin. Apply now and study at Deakin University. Today, we've brought in the big guns with Allison Robison, the Executive General Manager of People and Culture at Cricket Australia, who also sits on the board of Swimming Australia. And there is probably no one better placed in Australian sport to talk to you guys about the hiring process and what sports organisations look for. So I've seen a glimpse of what she's got to share, and I'm very excited for what you guys are about to learn. So without further ado, I'll throw it over to Allison.
Thanks so much, Ruben. I'm just trying to get my tech to work to bring up my slides. So just give me half a tick. It is great to have the chance to chat with you all today. And I thought it might be useful just in terms of a bit of background. Yes, absolutely. I'm the EGM of People and Culture here at Cricket Australia. I've been here for 3 years. And then prior to this, I was in a range of different sort of senior roles at National Australia Bank. But I was really involved in sport through my son, who is a track and field athlete. And he is now, well, he started when he was about 5. And when he first started, it was really clear that we were going to spend a lot of time at an athletics track. So I decided I wanted to get involved, and I spent about 5 years on the board of Athletics Victoria, and a couple of those as president of AV. And then I still do work with them, sitting on their People and Culture Committee for the board for Athletics Australia. And I chair the Nominations and People and Culture Committee for swimming, as Ruben said. Also in my professional life, I spent 12 years working in the career space and working with people on how to go about the job search process. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is some of the real things that happen from a job search perspective, and just to give you a bit of a sense of what you can expect, the best ways to approach job search, and to give you just that inside glimpse into what the hiring manager is looking for. But where I want to start is I was actually reading your website, the SportsGrad website, yesterday, Ruben, and I saw the comment you made about, it shouldn't be this hard. And I actually think that's not unique to sport. The job market, no matter whether you're in sporting roles, if you're in corporate roles, in not-for-profit land, actually works very differently from the hiring manager's perspective to the way that we approach the job process or the job seeking process as applicants. So let me sort of share a little bit about that for you. So on the left-hand side, when we're looking for a role, the things that we do to start off the process is we go straight to job boards. So you'll get yourself up onto Seek, you'll build out your LinkedIn profile, you might go and meet with some recruitment firms, you'll get applying for roles that come up in your feed, you might make some direct approaches to organisations. And it's very much a waiting game, and it's very much a reactive process. You're waiting for things to happen and waiting for things to come to you. What a hiring manager does, though, is very different. They start with a vacancy by asking the question, who do I know that could do this job? And if they don't know anyone directly, they then go to, well, I wonder who my network knows, and if there's anybody out there in my network that could help me fill this. Then, depending on their license usage with LinkedIn, they'll do a targeted search behind the scenes and be looking for people that match their profile. And it's only if that doesn't work that they'll then go and advertise the role. So it's a real disconnect, because we start as job seekers up here with what is in effect the last, or the place of last resort for a hiring manager. So what drives that? For an organisation, so if I think about Cricket Australia, one of the riskiest things that we do is hire new people. And the whole job search process, or the whole selection process, is aimed at de-risking that process. And the thinking is, if it's somebody that I know, it's actually lower risk, because I know that they will fit in with us. I know that their values will be similar to the way that we work. They'll come, if it's my network, they'll be coming highly recommended. And it really just means that we de-risk the process. So it's just a really interesting space to understand that for the hiring manager, the best way that you can be successful in any job search is actually to build relationships. And the world works, certainly the world of work, absolutely operates around relationships. And so while the formal job search process of applying for roles and so on is useful, and it will get you jobs in the long run, you also need to bolster your chances by building relationships. And it comes down to this term that most people don't necessarily understand or use really incorrectly, and that is the concept of networking. So let me demystify what networking is. It is simply talking to people who have a common interest with you. That is all networking is. It's not about going to a whole bunch of functions and handing around a business card or, building relationships and trying to get people to understand your situation and be thinking about you in job context. The success of networking is really, it's about having conversations with people about something that is mutually interesting, as I said, and it's a balance of asking for advice and sharing insights into your skills and experience. So if you arrange to have a contact, and let's say it might be, a family member recommends you talk to somebody, or Ruben recommends you come and talk to me, the meeting will be successful if you balance asking and sharing. Sometimes I've had people come and chat with me and the whole time all they're doing is talking about themselves. And so that's a real miss because they really haven't shown curiosity about my business. They're not seeking to learn anything new. It's just a marketing exercise. On the flip side, if you go into a meeting and you come to a meeting with me and all you're doing is asking me for advice about your career, you're missing an opportunity to plant a seed with me about your skills and your experience and how they might fit within Cricket Australia in this example. The other thing that is a real critical factor in networking is that it's totally powered by asking the question, who else do you think I should talk to? So again, if you were to come and talk to me and have a networking and advice conversation, asking me at the end of that discussion, is there anyone else you think I should have a talk to? And getting some other recommendations from people actually builds your network. And it also means that you can say, oh, look, I was talking with Allison Robison from Cricket Australia and she recommended I get in touch with you. It means you get that really warm introduction. And networking really starts around three different kinds of contacts. The first is actually the people that you know. They can be your family, your friends. They could be colleagues that you have done work experience with. They could be lecturers from uni. It could be a whole range of different people. But starting with the people that you know is a really safe space. And I find it really interesting. How many of you, think about your first sort of part-time job? How many of those came through relationships with people that, that your parents know, for example? We seem to think that it's okay to do that for part-time, not really serious work, but it's not okay to do that for permanent roles around progressing your career. And it couldn't be further from the truth. All of our family, all of our connections have connections into the areas and to, into the organisations that you want to work in. And so trying to find a way to speak to a friend who can recommend you talk to somebody in your target organisation or in your target industries and get those referrals in so that you can have a conversation. The second group of people are people that work in the industry. And preferably, these are going to be people who are not the hiring manager. They are people that can give you information about what the organisation's really like, how the industry really works. They can give you information about how to stand out. What are the skills and experiences that people are really looking for? Opportunities that might be coming up. And once you've had some discussions with people at that level, then you can say, who else do you think I should talk to? And be connected to hiring managers and building that relationship. Because even if you're applying for a role that I've got out on Seek or on LinkedIn, if I know your name, I'm much more likely to shortlist you for a conversation. And because I'm hardwired to go with people that I've got a relationship with, even if it's just from a single meeting. So I hope that makes sense. So, this is, as I said, this is really just about having a discussion with people, sharing a bit about your background, asking for their advice. And it might be questions like, where would you see someone with my skill set working, in your organisation? When you advertise roles, or when you have vacancies, what's your process to advertise roles or to get people into those vacancies? How might I be able to tap into that? There's some of the questions that you might ask. Another one might be, well, here's my skills, my background, my experience. What would your advice be about how I should go about finding, my first role or my next role within the sporting industry? They're the types of questions that you can be asking. And a lot of people feel with networking that you're being an imposition, or that people are going to say no. But it's amazing. Most people love the opportunity to give back and share their experience, their journey through their career. So it's not something that you should be afraid of. And I'd really encourage you all to get off this call today and start with a bit of a list of who you know that might be able to connect you to people like me. All right, so let's then talk about when you do see a job online and you want to apply for it. So let me talk a little bit about how we screen candidates. So I'm sure that all of you are well and truly across the rise of artificial intelligence and what it means for you as an applicant. My daughter has just used ChatGPT to help her with her resume. She's a teacher and needed to do a bit of an update before looking for a new role. And it was absolutely brilliant in terms of helping her to build out an updated resume. Probably what you're not aware, though, is that people like me also use artificial intelligence, and we do that to screen our candidates. So at CA, we are just about to go through a big technology upgrade, and what it will mean is that when we do have a job ad that goes out, the technology will review all applicants and will actually prioritise them into A candidates, B candidates, C and D. So that means you've actually got artificial intelligence doing the first review of your resume, doing the first review of your covering letter, and someone like me might not get to see it at all unless you survive that scan. So that sounds pretty brutal, but we can have 300 and 400 people apply for a role. And if you can imagine the time involved in scanning every single or reviewing every single application, for us, just as it is for you, AI is a really great way to cut through. So how do you survive that scan knowing that it's artificial intelligence that is going to do that initial review? And the key thing is to make sure that you do the next few points. The first one is that you show us in your covering letter your passion and your personality and your experience as it relates to us. So what that means is when you see the selection criteria for the role, that you address each one of those in your resume, that you use the same language as what is in the job ad, because that's the criteria that we'll be using or we'll be teaching AI to use to shortlist applicants. So using the same language as the job ad, using the same definitions of skills, that is going to make it as easy as possible for us to make sure that you get matched and we can see the parallels between your experience and our role. I had an applicant. We had the executive assistant to the chief executive officer apply for a position a couple of years ago, and her covering letter of the successful applicant was one of the best I've ever read. It was really quite informal in some ways, but it actually just told us a story that truly reflected her personality and her passion. And she started off her letter by saying, how she'd grown up in and around the Richmond area, in the shadows of the MCG, and that summers for her was spent at the Boxing Day Test, coming to one-day internationals, and that cricket was just such an enormous part of her and her family life. And so when we see something like that in a covering letter, that immediately makes us think that you're going to be somebody who will fit really well in our environment. So that's where the passion and the personality comes in. So if you think about this, the shortlisting process as twofold. Firstly, you've just got to get through that AI scan. Then when somebody who is a human gets to read your application, that's where you really want that personality and that passion to come through, because that's going to make us really curious to meet you and to really understand what you bring. So I used to work with somebody who used to call the resume and the interview the twin pillars of fear in the job search process. And I think that's a pretty good description. Resumes are hard work. They're difficult to write, but there's really great examples out there. And as I said, using AI to help you is really sensible. But I just want to dispel this concept of my resume. And actually what you're going to have is my resumes. You can't use the same resume for every single job, every single time. It absolutely needs to be targeted and tailored to match what the organisation is asking for. So I'm hoping that that's something that you're doing. If not, that is one critical thing that you can take away, because, again, unless you're using the language of the job ad, we're unlikely to actually see your resume. So it's really important to get it right and just to invest that 15 minutes, 20 minutes with each application to make sure that you're getting really targeted. So let's say now that you have survived the scan, we've read your application, and we absolutely are excited to meet you, and you get the call to say, we'd love to meet you for an interview. So let's have a chat at what interviews are really about. One of the things that is scary about interviews is that the interviewer can ask you anything, absolutely anything, but it actually doesn't matter how they frame the question. There's only 3 things that they are looking to answer through an interview process. The first one is, can you do the job? So those sets of questions are all about your skills and experience. And they're going to be framed as things like, tell me about a time when you had to plan an event. What were some of the things that you did to make sure that you met your budget? Some of the things that you did to meet the timeframes. So what we're looking at there is just those technical experiences to say, yep, tick, this person has delivered an event, they've managed on time and on budget. The next question isn't as direct, but it's about, will you do the job? And what that means is, are you motivated for it? Are you passionate about it? Do you have 10 other things happening in your life that actually mean that, you're not going to be putting your focus and energy into this role? Is it really the right role for you, or is it going to be too much of a stretch, or is it perhaps too entry level? So we're really looking for your motivation here. So when you go into an interview and they ask that question, well, so tell us why this role is exciting for you. Why have you applied for this role? What they're asking there is, will you do this job and be really excited by it? And then the last set of questions, will you fit in with my team, is actually the most tricky as a candidate, because you cannot fake the chemistry of somebody who is a perfect fit for what the organisation's looking for. And nor should you try to fake that chemistry, because if you're not going to fit in with the team, then actually it's not going to be a great long-term role for you, and the organisation's probably not going to be the right place for you. So how do we ask, will you fit in with my team? Sometimes we don't ask it at all. Sometimes it is about literally just the chemistry that happens in the moment. And there's one thing that you can do as a candidate for a job that is absolutely going to play into this space, and it's the most powerful thing that nobody ever tells you in an interview, and that is the rule that they say, at the end you can ask your questions. That's actually not a rule. And you can ask questions at any time during the interview, and you should ask questions throughout the interview. And let me tell you what actually happens with this. As I've said, it's really all about the chemistry. And what we need to do is really get to understand you, understand how you operate, what your values are. And the more we get to hear from you and experience of you in the interview, the more likely it is that we'll build chemistry. So if I'm asking you in an interview something like, tell me about a time when you've dealt with some really challenging external stakeholders. How have you gone through that process? How did you prioritise their needs? So if that's my question, what I recommend you do is answer the question and then throw a question back to the interviewer and say, oh, so look, that's really great. I'm really interested to understand who are some of the external stakeholders I'd be dealing with in this role. So you're asking a question, and what it actually does is it changes the dynamic in the interview, and it moves it away from being a one-way conversation to much more of a collaborative discussion. And that is a space where chemistry and the way that you fit with the team will be much more visible and more evident to the people on the panel. So I'd really encourage you just to put the rule book aside, don't wait until the end, and work your questions through the interview. So I hope that makes sense, because it's a really powerful game changer in the conversation. Okay, so then when you do have interview questions coming at you, there are 3 things that you need to do to cover your answer. Now, what we call behavioural event interviews are those questions that ask you about a specific time when you've dealt with a situation. And we ask you about those specific examples for a reason. The most important reason is that the past behaviour is the best predictor of behaviour into the future. And so if we ask you about dealing with difficult stakeholders and you give us a specific example of when you've done that in the past, that's a much better indicator than us saying, well, how do you think you might deal with difficult stakeholders? And so when you do get those very specific questions about, tell me about a time when, the way to answer those questions is to answer by firstly framing up the challenge. So in this case, it might be, well, yes, I had a really difficult stakeholder in my last job. They were a really important customer, but they were always renowned as being quite challenging and demanding. And then you talk about the actions that you took to solve that customer's needs. And then really importantly, you talk about the result you're able to achieve. So the result might be, and so the customer walked away really very happy with what we'd been able to deliver. It can be as simple as that. Now, most people that I interview get really caught up in painting a picture about the challenge, but actually that's not the bit that's important. To be honest, I really couldn't care much about the challenge. What I want to know is what you actually did about it and what outcome you achieved. So again, if you take something away from today, just note the challenge, just cover it very briefly, but put more detail into the specific things that you did and the result that it drove. So I hope that all makes sense. And now I'm just going to go to the final stage. And this is an area that a lot of people don't really think about, but it is one of the most important steps in the selection process, and that is nailing your referees. So you absolutely don't need and shouldn't put your referees in your resume. You also don't need to say available on request, because we all know that. But what I do want you to do is not just ask people, will you be my referee, but actually to work with your referee. Because what most people do is say, will you be my referee? And they're just guessing or hoping that the reference will be positive. But I know, because I've done it myself, when somebody's asked me for a reference, and I have been really honest, and I probably resulted in them not getting the job. And if you get to this stage where we're asking for your referees, talk with your referees first. Explain to them, this is how I'm positioning myself. This is what I'm saying about my experience, my skills. Are you comfortable to support that? And then also really importantly ask, is there anything that I've missed? Because they might say, oh, yeah, well, actually, what about this? You did this great piece of work, in this particular project or in this particular role. And so they might help you strengthen. But it's much better here to have somebody say to you, oh, look, that I don't know that I can support that, rather than have someone like me contact them and they do you a disservice in the reference checking process. So it's just a simple change. It's just asking them, would you mind, I just want to run through, how I'm been positioning myself through the process so that you can best support me. Are you comfortable with what I've called through as my strengths for this role? 99.9% will say yes, and most of them will go, wow, that's a really good idea. I should make note of that and do that myself next time I'm looking for a role. So I'm going to pause there and take myself off sharing and invite your questions.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Alison. I've got plenty of notes as well and learned plenty as well. Lincoln, do you want to ask the first question?
Sure. Hi, Alison. Thank you for your talk. That was very interesting to hear things from the other side of the fence. I can certainly understand the benefit of using your network to help get to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. But how do you balance taking advantage of the network that you have without being viewed as only getting the opportunities through nepotism?
Okay. So I think it's a really interesting question. Let me just say, you don't get extra points by doing it the hard way. And actually, for me as a hiring manager, nepotism is just not even a thing, because what actually will happen is, we are still going to interview. If you are recommended to me, I'm still going to interview you. I'm still going to make sure you're the right person for the job. We're still going to reference check you. It's just that you have come to us recommended, which makes the appointment less risky for us, because somebody that we know and value has said this person's really great. Lincoln's fantastic. You should meet Lincoln. He's just perfect for that job. If I hear that, then I'm not, nepotism just doesn't even come into it.
All right, cool. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, no worries. And look, let me tell you how I came to be at cricket. So I worked, as I said, at National Australia Bank. Part of one of my roles there was as the General Manager of People and Culture for Finance. I worked very closely with one of the leaders who reported to NAB's Chief Finance Officer. She came to cricket, and when this opportunity came up, she recommended me, and here I am 3 years later. So I think the other thing is to understand is actually this is how the world of work actually works. So it's not an unusual experience.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed these insights from Alison. Now, if you'd like more recruitment insights direct from people like the executives of Cricket Australia, then become a SportsGrad member. Members get access to these online events, which we call Employer Insights, where we bring the industry to you to find out exactly what they look for. Now, we've done this with Cricket Australia, we've done this with the FIFA Women's World Cup, we've done this with the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup and many other organisations. And this means there is no guessing as to what you have to do to get hired, which is why SportsGrad members have landed over 700 jobs in sport. So, If you'd like to have an advantage over everyone else in an extremely competitive industry, get yourself a SportsGrad membership and fast track your next job in sport. Hey, last thing before you go. Everyone knows the sports industry is super competitive, so you might want to keep this to yourself. But every Monday, I send out an email called Shortcuts by SportsGrad. It takes 5 minutes to read and it gives you everything you need to get an edge over other job hunters on a silver platter. Here you'll find exclusive job opportunities, networking events, and premium resources to get ahead. Again, it takes less than 5 minutes to read and it's designed to help you get ahead and stay ahead. So if you want to receive the next one in your inbox, head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter. But as I mentioned, competition for jobs in sport is red hot, so perhaps keep this to yourself.